Welcome back to New World Next Week. I'm James Corbett at CorbettReport.com.
And I'm James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. I ran to get my video camera after seeing the second plane crash, sensing that this was no ordinary accident. We have got that story, plus the Frankengreens are coming, but first, Hamas leader Haniyeh killed in Iran by alleged Israeli strike, threatening escalation. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was killed by a pre-dawn airstrike in the Iranian capital. Iran and the militant group said, blaming Israel for a shock assassination that risks escalating the conflict, even as the U.S. and other nations were scrambling to prevent an all-out regional war. Iran's supreme leader vowed revenge against Israel. There was no immediate comment from Israel, which has pledged to kill Haniyeh and Hamas leaders over the group's October 7th attack on southern Israel. The strike came just after Haniyeh had attended the inauguration of Iran's new president in Tehran, and only hours after Israel targeted a top commander in Iran's ally Hezbollah in the Lebanese capital of Beirut. The assassination of Hamas's top political leader was potentially explosive amid the region's volatile, intertwined conflicts because of its target, its timing, and the decision to carry it out in Tehran. Most dangerous was the potential to push Iran and Israel into direct confrontation if Iran retaliates, which is, of course, the threat. We consider his revenge as our duty, Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said in a statement from his official website. He said Israel has prepared a harsh punishment for itself by killing a dear guest in our home. Bitter regional rivals, Israel and Iran risked plunging into war earlier this year when Israel hit Iran's embassy in Damascus back in April. Haniyeh's killing could also prompt Hamas to just pull out of negotiations for a ceasefire and a hostage release deal in the 10-month-old war in Gaza, which U.S. mediators have said we're making progress. So, James, it seems like at almost every possible point for peace, some side escalates things with more violence, almost like they don't want peace at all. And as I get older and older, it starts to feel more and more like they want to goad pre-tribulation American Christians into World War III. James?
Well, that's part of the calculus that's going on here, but only one part of it. There's a lot of moving parts here. So, yes, I think the key words in that article you're reading from, potentially explosive, I think is probably the phrase to remember. And if people want more on sort of the general background of Ismail Haniyeh, they could turn to my Secret History of Hamas article, which doesn't talk much about Haniyeh in particular, but it does talk about his mentor, the person who brought him up through Palestinian politics to the point where he became leader of Hamas, the political wing of Hamas, back in 2006. And as that organization tried to turn in a more political direction, how did he get his position? It was because he had been the personal assistant to Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, who was the spiritual father, one of the founders of Hamas. And who was Sheikh Yassin? Well, in my Secret History of Hamas article, I quote from the 2009 Wall Street Journal article on how Israel helped to spawn Hamas, where they quote Avner Cohen, a Tunisian-born Jew who worked as an Israeli official in Gaza during the 70s and 80s, who said that Hamas, to my great regret, is Israel's creation. He also noted that Israel cooperated with Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, even as he was laying the foundations for what would become Hamas. And that same article goes on to quote retired IDF Brigadier General Yitzhak Segev, who even admitted to arranging a trip to Israel for Sheikh Yassin so he could receive hospital treatment. They did end up writing the Sheikh Yassin character out of the script in 2004 with an explosive, fiery assassination death that caused a lot of consternation at that time. So it looks like they have written his successor out of the script now. So what comes next is really the question, and it's one that's potentially been answered or being answered right now. Jerusalem Post reporting, for example, Iran's Khamenei orders attacks on Israel as revenge for Haniyeh elimination. Which says Iran is expected to directly attack Israel in response to the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran on Wednesday morning. According to a New York Times report citing three sources, the directive was issued at an emergency meeting of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, the report added. And then it goes on to talk about, of course, what's the U.S. response? U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin had earlier in the day said, if Israel is attacked, we will certainly help defend Israel. Well, of course they will. And who will help to defend Iran? Russia calls for Middle East to step back from the brink of war, noting Andrei Nastasin, deputy spokesman of Russia's foreign ministry, saying, "We strongly condemn the murder of the head of the political bureau of the Palestinian Hamas movement, Ismail Haniyeh, as a result of a rocket attack on his residence in Tehran. It is obvious that the organizers of this political assassination were aware of the dangerous consequences this action is fraught with for the entire region." And as we're recording this, I think Israel still hasn't officially claimed credit for this assassination, but everyone knows what ultimately happened here. And so, what does all of this mean? Spell it out in black and white. Well, I will just refer people back, not for the first time, probably not for the last, to episode 2 of the Corbett Report from June 8th of 2007. World War III starts in Iran, noting Russia, Iran, the resistance bloc, whatever, against the NATO powers. Things continue to line up in that direction. Hopefully, this doesn't end up in that big conflagration, but holding breath now.
We shall see. And on a lighter note, which is what I always do, I don't know if you'd heard, there's a lot of news going on lately, James. That former IDF sniper, Dr. Ruth Westheimer, she's been written off the world stage show as well. So you got homework after this to go check out. More deep state parapolitics coming up later on this episode, with several other updates to stories we've been covering recently here on New World Next Week. But first, of course, let your medicine be your food, let your food be your medicine, and not a Bayer Santo experiment. The Frankengreens are coming this month. A biotech startup, Pairwise, Pairwise, teaming up with Bayer to roll out a new type of mustard green no one asked for, engineered to be less bitter than the original plant. The vegetable is set to be the first CRISPR-edited food to hit the U.S. market that they've told us about. Just as meatless meat companies are using climate change to push their agenda, we're told that altering plants' genetics to make fruits and vegetables more palatable will revolutionize public health by encouraging us to eat more salads. That'll do it. And it's not just mustard greens. The company is using CRISPR to develop seedless blackberries and pitless cherries because that's got to stop. As we've been arguing for some time, there are significant concerns that need to be addressed with this new generation of genetically modified foods, but those concerns are ignored by federal agencies that seem content to close their eyes and allow the biotech industry to treat us like guinea pigs in a massive open-air experiment. And James, as I've joked many times, oh, you don't want to eat our garbage GMOs? Well, we'll just spray the skies and poison your water anyway. So there. Technically, though, the new mustard greens aren't classified as GMOs because the changes, they tell us, could have been made to occur through traditional breeding methods. This distinction allows gene-edited foods to bypass the more stringent, yet still completely inadequate regulations that earlier GMOs like Roundup-ready soy and corn must follow. James, you know, Cassie and I at home have been long-time organic, non-GMO proponents, but as the years and decades go by, all the rules get watered down, and you can't really trust or believe in any of it. All the, organic olive oils, organic beers, organic wines, all tested, all the cereals, all have glyphosate in them, even if they're organic and non-GMO. They have seeded chaos and poison all around the world and made it basically impossible to avoid it. We will include a link to the devil's website, pairwise.com, on our products. But also recently, Jiankui He, creator of CRISPR-edited children, relocates to Chinese medical tourism hub. Again, CRISPR-edited children should send a chill down to anyone who might still have a spine. Because remember, years back here on New World Next Week, remember we talked about CRISPR mutations. New World Next Week, episode 314, CRISPR gene editing can cause hundreds of unintended mutations. May 29th, 2017. And now this is back in the news a bunch. I did just cover this on the Morning Monarchy, the Food World Order edition about a week ago, James. Gene editing causes unintended genetic changes with implications for food, agriculture. And you too, Corby, have most recently discussed it as the future of food. James?
That's right. So, let's just step back for a second to think about this in the larger picture, because what is it they are even attempting to do here? As you say, let's make people eat more salads to help with climate change or whatever nonsense they're trying to push people into. So in order to do that, let's change the flavor and structure of these foods at the genetic level by tinkering with this gene editing that, oh, by the way, causes all these random mutations, so that it doesn't taste like what it naturally tastes like, so that people will shove it in their mouths. Does that seem like, I mean, even if you swallowed every line of that propaganda narrative, let's fight against nature with all our might in order to help preserve nature or something? It's stupid on its face. But of course, it gets much stupider from the perspective of people who actually believe in any of that propaganda narrative. Just a couple of stories from the past week that went across my news wires. What? Bill Gates' fake lab-made butter is here to significantly reduce our carbon footprint. Made with CO2. It's a totally non-agricultural method for producing food. Brags Bill Gates. Yay! Wonderful. And, of course, I mean, there has to be an Eat the Bugs story every single day. So Singapore has approved 16 insects to eat as food. Here's everything you need to know from The Guardian. Of course, once again, putting this forward as if it's just some brand new idea that just happened yesterday, and here's what you need to know about it. And did you know it would be so much better if people got their protein from insects, guys? Yes, the daily, if not hourly, Eat the Bugs propaganda coming out through the news wires. Counter to that, I will throw in a link to a recent doortofreedom.org article on future food. No thanks. Which has a number of important tidbits in there, including the fact that the Bezos Earth Fund has committed $1 billion to help transform food and agricultural systems to support healthy lives without degrading the planet. And so I will leave people to ponder in their own time why it is that the Gates and the Bezos of the world, these billionaire tech monopolists, have devoted so much of their wealth now to monopolizing the world's food supply. It's because they love you and they care about you. Of course not. But having said all of that, as I say, I think it's absolutely ridiculous on its face that there's all this tinkering with nature and working against nature to try to trick people into eating things they don't want to eat or something, instead of working with nature, which of course was the key point of the regenerative agriculture podcast that I put out a little while ago on Solutions Watch that I will recommend if people haven't seen it. Working with nature actually seems to be just on a more rational level, even if you are concerned about the weather gods or whatever. Having said all of that, you might remember that last year I was part of the Attack on Food Symposium that was put together by Door to Freedom. They're putting on another one in September. I will be speaking at that, so details to come on that. But anyway, stay tuned for much more, because this is an ongoing agenda, and unfortunately, as I say, the propaganda is rolling out on this one with increasing frequency as we hurtle off the cliff of natural foods into this CRISPR, gene-edited, fake, lab-made, whatever, nonsense, gunk, insect, garbage universe.
That no one really asked for. James, the popular meme format, nobody. It's blank, meaning nobody asked for this crap. I think the one I saw today was Southern gas stations. You can get all kinds of deep-fried buffet food at Southern gas stations. It's true, I've seen it with my own eyes. But again, no one really asked for that. Man, the Tutti Frutti bubblegum flavor really makes these mustard greens go down. Now I enjoy them. James, I was going to ask you what your favorite food was, but mostly as a thought exercise. Think about out there your favorite food, whatever that is, and think about it being ruined forever by mad scientists, and you have to spend the whole zombie apocalypse wandering around looking for it, hoping you're going to find that Twinkie.
Well, luckily my favorite food is lab-made cricket substitute. It's not even actual Eat the Bugs, it's Eat the Lab-made bugs. I'm going to get ahead of the propaganda trend.
We down here in northern New Mexico, and it's been a real buggy summer. It was a very wet winter, so that's meant for more growth and way more bugs. James, Cassie, and I have joked looking outside. It's like, well, those are some giant, juicy looking grasshoppers. So we'll at least do it on our homegrown, eat the bugs agenda. Oy vey, indeed. This is New World Next Week, episode 564. Our third segment this week, something we probably need to do a bit more often, and that is follow up on some of the stories that we've been covering here recently on New World Next Week. And this one really, James, this one tops the list for me. Man releases new footage of 9/11 after 23 years, revealing unseen angle of Twin Towers collapse. It is way better than that Saudi guy's recent boring footage. Footage has been posted online, which claims to show a new angle of the devastating September 11th attacks almost 23 years on. The footage was posted on YouTube by Ki Sugimoto on July 23rd. The images show the towers belching out smoke and are not seen from the south or the east, the most well-known angles of the catastrophe, giving a whole new perspective of the devastating moments. Sugimoto explained why it had taken him so long to post the footage, because of course everybody's, this is sus, why does this come out now? And it was all down to getting the footage shot on video properly digitized. Sugimento wrote, I was cleaning my closet and found boxes full of high 8, digital 8, and DV tapes, of which we have a ton here. When trying to play them back, I noticed that maybe about a third of them had demagnetized over time and were either blank or suffering from major data corruption. After researching online, I learned that videotapes are not immune from age, even when stored in ideal conditions, so I frantically started to digitize them, thus I'm just uploading the video now. If I remember correctly, I think I ran to get my video camera after seeing the second plane crash, sensing that this was no ordinary accident. One viewer commented, this footage offers a unique perspective not seen from the south or east. You are watching these angles for the first time ever. Another reflected on the historical extraordinary discovery made in someone's house, writing, makes me wonder how much history is being stored in people's attics or basements waiting to be unearthed. James, pretty wild. I mean, giant chunks of the building falling off over on the side. It is something to look at. Do you want to comment on this now, or should I blast through all the updates and you go?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add to it. Yeah, it is weird that footage turns up after 23 years, but anyway, I'm sure people will have, as you say, speculation about that. But just taking the footage at face value, the only thought I really had was, well, I don't think this shows us anything we really hadn't seen before, maybe from a different perspective in a different way. But all it does is put me in mind of when, in 2006, I started really getting into 9/11 truth and looking at this information, and for the first time watched the destruction, the pulverization of these towers, and for the first time realized, oh yeah, that's not a building collapsing. That's a building that's being exploded, torn apart with incredible explosive energy. And I don't know what that mental switch flip is, but it got flipped at that moment, and suddenly I saw, oh yeah, that is not a collapse. And this footage, especially of the North Tower collapse, again, just, it's so obvious to me. I cannot imagine how anyone can look at that and go, yep, that's a building collapsing. It isn't. It's exploding and pulverizing to dust.
It changed the definition of what people think collapses look like. Let's change the definition of what people think vaccines are supposed to do. Again, this is the memory hole 1984 Ministry of Truth world we live in, James. Yeah, they are, I believe, aerosolized into dust. And if I ever laughed at directed energy weapons as a possibility for 9/11, I apologize. Furthermore, on 9/11 updates, the Oscars, Super Bowl, Olympics, they are just commercials for the police state. Are the Olympics actually a trial run for a 1984 digital state? First-person report of QR codes, digital IDs, and the police militarization of Paris. Great stuff on activistpost.com. Meanwhile, while we're still talking about the feats of strength show, climate activists thwarted in Paris. Climate activists attempted to disrupt the first day of the Paris Olympics. This futile display of eco-theatrics cut short by French authorities. Yeah, get those stupid kids gluing themselves to paintings or whatever. They're idiots. While the swift action of the French police might be commendable in maintaining order, it does raise some questions about pesky due process. Around 30 people were preventively arrested Saturday in Paris without there being any offense to truly accuse them of, one of the lawyers' groups told the AFP. Remember, what you cheer on for others will later be cheered on for you. CIA denies conspiracy theory that it used MK Ultra on Trump shooter. What an odd thing to say. Was the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump part of a secret CIA program involving brainwashed killers? That's the claim being made by some. far-right accounts on X, and not every mainline Democrat. But the U.S. intelligence agency has taken the unusual step of directly and forcefully denying these claims. The CIA decided to push back very publicly against these claims, something the agency doesn't very often do when weird conspiracy theories are floating around on the internet. These claims are utterly false, absurd, and damaging, a CIA spokesperson told Gizmodo. The CIA had no relationship whatsoever with Thomas Crooks regarding MKUltra. The CIA's program was totally shut down more than 40 years ago, and declassified information about the program is available on CIA.gov. And that's all you would ever need to know. Now let's have no more curiosity about this bizarre cover-up. James, that's why I made the implication. Did you hear his dad was a behavioral therapist? Because remember, your psychiatry wings are the whole conduit of MKUltra. Period. Looking through stuff, remember months back, it's like, oh, Martinsburg, West Virginia, at the Veterans Administration, they used the VA hospitals to experiment on people. Finally, on these New World Next Week updates of recent stories we've covered, Bohemian Grove uses copyright strikes to scrub secret ritual footage. A video uploaded by a citizen journalist known only as Dancer was removed from YouTube after the Bohemian Club issued a copyright strike against the footage, which captured scenes from the secretive Bohemian Grove's annual ceremony. Do they still use the Walter Cronkite voiceover? While these legal mechanisms are designed to protect intellectual property rights, they're increasingly leveraged by corporations, private entities, and government bodies to censor material deemed sensitive or damaging. This practice not only restricts public access to potentially important information, but also stifles discourse and debate, perhaps the more important goal, particularly when the content in question involves powerful figures or institutions. James, I had somebody send me a link. Here's the new Oh, crap, it's gone. James?
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I guess maybe in a sense I should be happy because some more YouTubers have discovered that YouTube is not an actual information platform and should not be relied on, but I doubt that's the lesson they're going to learn. I bet you they're just going to go on doing what they do on YouTube and avoiding subjects that will be copyright struck because everybody has to be on YouTube. Anyway, I'm glad that our audience is absolutely 100% aware and switched on to the fact that ThemeTube is a propaganda censorship platform and should not be relied on ever for anything, which is why I am so glad that so many people, probably the vast majority of our audience, when they heard us talking about this the other week, they immediately went, downloaded that footage that was available on YouTube while it was on YouTube, knowing it would be scrubbed, and have now seeded it out to all of the other video platforms, Rumble and Odyssey and BitChute and all of them. Everywhere. Put it all over the place online. So, I'm going to call on Corbett Report members who I know have done this, as I have exhorted many, many times. Get the information. Download it so you have your own copy. Post it elsewhere. Now, I'm going to call on you to post your links to wherever you seeded it online, because I know you did that, right, guys? And extra internet points for everyone who does so.
James, you know, of course, how we feel about physical media and obsessively archiving and saving everything. Some of the videos I use clips for on my morning show, and I'm often just trying to find this sort of cross-section of what some of the official stories might be, and I use maybe lots of normie clips that are on normie YouTube. But even some of the creators themselves, they censor themselves. You know, I couldn't ever say anything about prawn or pew-pews, and they'll skip over the word. Yeah, pews, meaning for guns. They'll skip over. See, you cannot say any of those words. You'll all get flagged and tagged. And again, as much as I appreciate the perseverance, again, it's like, that's thankfully, James, I just use YouTube for public domain, pre-code movies, lots of old-time radio, and definitely retro gaming documentaries. That is New World Next Week, episode 564. James, we run newworldnextweek.com as a way to support our work, and we've got new stuff on there. The 2016 archive, Corbett Report 2016 data archive. That is the USB flash drive. It's 48 gigs. James, do you have any? What are your highlights from that era? If you could remember things from that era, some of the highlights of this 2016 drive.
I imagine most people would probably be most interested in the 9/11 Suspects documentary, which was released in 2016. So, of course, it is there in audio and video format, including, of course, the episode on the dancing Israelis that I know continues to be a popular episode to this day. So, yes, there's that there. There's interviews, GRTV episodes. There's my interview with Brent DeBoer of the Dandy Warhols. That was the year that Brock really started doing the flashback episodes. So we would go and take an old audio podcast and he would make a video version. So you got the 720p video version of all these classic Corbett Report episodes. And in addition to all that, New World Next Week, everything else, literally everything posted to the Corbett Report in 2016. Also, the subscriber exclusive videos that I was doing every single month at that point. I do them occasionally now. I was doing them every single month, just slice of life stuff from here in Japan, including a little conversation between me and Brock. He came and visited around cherry blossom season in 2016, so we had a nice conversation under the cherry blossoms. That kind of stuff. Literally everything, as you say, 48 gigs. And I did get an email the other day from somebody who was going, well, actually, you keep saying these USB archives will preserve the information, but in 10, 20 years, people won't even use USB anymore. Well, yes, I'm aware of that. The point is you have the data. You can put it on any device in any format. You can change it to whatever format comes in the future. But what if the Great Carrington event comes and all electronic devices in the world are completely knocked out for all time? Then I can't watch New World Next Week from 2016, James. You got me. You got me, guys. Come on, guys. Use your noggin a little bit. This is the way for you to have this in your hands. It helps preserve this information. You might have to put some effort into that, into getting it into whatever format comes along. But it is the only way we have right now to get this in your hands. And oh, by the way, you can help support this work. So please, if you are interested, please go to newworldnextweek.com and take a look at this, or any of the other USB archives, or anything else that's on newworldnextweek.com. I will just, once again, remind people that any of the media, Corbett Report media, you can use your subscriber discount code. If you are a member of the Corbett Report, there's a subscriber discount code at the bottom of every single newsletter that has that code. You can type that in and get 25% off, including 25% off this new USB archive as well. So I hope people will take advantage of that. And as always, if you don't know anything about this subscriber discount code or where to find it, just email me. I'll be happy to help.
James, it's like a band selling you their record and going, whatever, you're just going to scratch it up anyway. Or maybe that's what the audience telling the band that. I'm not sure. Yes, you might have to take some extra effort to update this, because as we just discussed, yes, even physical media might degrade over the decades. There it was. There.
Yeah.
The New World Next Week sigh at the New World Next Week audience. Exclusive audio. Remember, I play the exclusive audio of these New World Next Week episodes after my Thursday morning monarchy. They are unpublished anywhere. Only me, Brock, and Corbett have heard them. And James, I think it's a great way to kind of get people over to MediaMonarchy.com/listen. News, music, memes, and more. Again, it's like a radio station, but it's awesome. There it is, James. New World Next Week, 564. That's our last for a smidge of time.
That's right. As I said the other day on Solutions Watch, I am going to be taking an August hiatus. I'm not going to be posting to the website in August, except for the August Open thread that's coming up. So, yes, no New World Next Week for next month or so, even if World War III starts. So, don't hold your breath. We will be back in September.
All right, buddy. We'll be off for my birthday, so I know you'll take that.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Cheers, buddy. Take care, man.
Take care.